And then let's go back to what this rally is really about. It's about one stock. It's 916. I haven't mentioned yet. It's about NVIDIA. And yesterday, NVIDIA had a global summit where I have to tell you, when I was looking at what was covered here, this is what was covered. You had health, industrial revolution, financial plus cyber, climate, autonomous, and then my favorite, space, where they are now setting up a huge radio telegraph to see who is transmitting to us from outer space, talking to us.
Yes, of course. The aliens.
They're not aliens. They're trying to get in touch with us.
It doesn't make them aliens?
Aliens are people go over the border.
They're trying to call us, and NVIDIA is the operator.
Absolutely.
Yes. Jensen Huang is an alien.
Okay, no, he's hardly. He's actually a Renaissance man, not unlike Da Vinci. But I think what's interesting in this, and I'm I'm talking about someone who is thinking so bigger than we are.
I know.
By the way, NVIDIA is working on a sixth-day higher, the first higher high since June. Thank you, Bespoke. I think Jensen's wealth now eclipsing Intel's market cap.
He had a better year than Intel.
He sure did. Over $100 billion in wealth. Intel obviously below that.
Intel, it may not.
By the way, yesterday, Microsoft's Azure tweeted it's now officially the first cloud running NVIDIA's GB200 Blackwell AI servers.
But how many?
OpenAI also announcing as well, apparently, that they've received some shipments. That's October 8th. Right. NVIDIA has a fiscal third quarter that ends in October, so that should imply what? Blackwell revenues actually start to hit
and then
this quarter?
And the yields are going to get better and better, and what you're going to end up seeing that they're going to produce, say, 99% of these things are going to work. Right now, they do not have that kind of yield. And, David, what you missed is that your buddy, pal, friend Elon Musk has accumulated a number of these high-powered chips to create the greatest supercomputer of all time. And what will he use that for?
Well, that's at XAI.
Yeah, that's a separate company. I didn't say Tesla. Musk.
And he's already got, I believe, a huge data center up and running already in Tennessee with the money they raised at XAI.
Plus, he's contacted, Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania?
Incredible.
He did call Shapiro.
He's Mr. Battle State.
One is for AI, for XAI and its mission, and the other, obviously, is Tesla and self-driving.
Go to that last conference call when he actually gave a nod to Jensen Huang. I think it was his first nod in history. Realize that Jensen Huang is smarter than he is when it comes to this. That's what he said. Let's go. There's a podcast, David. No one knows that you're dissing me by not talking to me. It's a podcast every day. You can just go to it. Okay? Don't forget my top 10.
NVIDIA shares are pulling back a bit as the chipmaker wraps up its AI summit in Washington, and after almost testing their record highs from the summer today. After the break, we'll speak with one analyst who sees 20% upside still coming. The exchange is back after this. NVIDIA's AI summit in Washington, D.C. is wrapping up today and nearly propelled the shares to a new all-time high. The company is focused on energy efficiency and enterprise software as they work to avoid being boxed in as just a processor company worth a couple $1 trillion. Meanwhile, Foxconn is announcing plans to build the world's largest manufacturing facility for a key component of NVIDIA's Blackwell platform. Here to discuss is Stacy Rasgon. He's senior analyst at Bernstein. Good to have you, Stacy. Let's start with the big picture takeaways on NVIDIA after this DC summit. The shares almost kissed that new high, or made a new high this morning.
Yeah, they did. Look, I mean, people are getting excited about the story again, especially as we approach earnings. And then year end into next year as their new platform, Blackwell, really starts to ramp. And look, by all indications, their own commentary, all the supply chain checks and everything else, demand for this product just looks off the charts. And, it's usually a good time to be owning NVIDIA into the launch of a product cycle. And that's where we are right now. And this cycle, if the checks are any indication, has the potential to be massive. So people are getting really excited about it.
And maybe it's just a kind of near-term technical analysis, but I listened to Katie Stockton. She says, maybe it's range-bound for now. Maybe we go back under 100. There's been a lot of excitement and a lot of hype. And when I know about Blackwell, you think, well, most people know.
Yeah, I mean, the last time it went under 100 was when there were some rumors about some delays to Blackwell, some redesigns to some of the chip components that are on it. And as it turns out, there were some issues. They were able to sort of work through it in a relatively quick fashion, and it kind of turned into sort of a nothing burger, at least from the standpoint of the trajectory of the ramp. It doesn't look like it slowed anything. But that was the last time it went under 100. Short of anything like dramatic like that, I don't know if we see that anymore. Like I said, at this point, the indications that the numbers are much more likely, I think, to have an upward bias than a downward bias. And I suspect that's true for the stock as well. as we get into the ramp into the end of the year.
Real quickly, I want to ask you about some of the rest of the space as well, but what do you have for the PE here? I mean, what are the earnings that the market is expecting, and what do you think is possible, and what should the multiple be for a company growing like this?
Yeah, the multiple is actually not that expensive if you believe the numbers. I think the sell side's like somewhere around $4, maybe a little more. I suspect the buy side, the investors are higher. They're probably closer to 450 or 5. And again, if you look at some of the supply chain checks and you see where the revenues could go, if the demand is sufficient to meet the supply that is likely to be available, you could get numbers that are higher than that. And so if the numbers are any close to being correct, the stock's 130, it's called like mid to high 30s multiple on a realistic kind of number. It's not that expensive. And I've made this point before. It's much cheaper today than it was before the run started a year and a half ago.
Right, because the earnings
the stock's gone up a ton, but the earnings have gone up much, much more than the stock. So as long as these numbers are sustainable, but that's the controversy is the numbers have gotten so big so quickly. Like, is it sustainable? That is the question. But for now, like I said before, I suspect numbers are much more likely to be going up versus down.
And is it cyclical? I mean, historically speaking, I mean, the new chip is always gets a high multiple, but over time. They become too cyclical. They get lower multiples as a result because investors don't like the ups and downs. And some of the bulls on this have to say basically that it's not going to be cyclical this time around in order to justify trading where it is and with the expectations where they are. And what's going on with the rest of the industry in terms of supply and demand right now? Yeah,
you bet. So if we look at the rest of the industry, like this will be an upturn year for semis in general, but I wouldn't say it's a healthy upturn. Like memory is going to grow a lot, because memory was horrendous last year, and actually they took supply offline because the demand was so horrible, and because of that pricing went up, and so memory will be good. PCs and smartphones, they're okay. You're probably not getting a lot of growth, and there's some worries about things like CPU inventory in PCs. Data center, like AI is off the charts, but traditional data center networking and CPUs are pretty weak. Industrial has been weak. It looks like maybe some parts of that have bottomed, but we're not seeing a ton of signs of recovery yet. And automotive is now starting to roll over, maybe in a pretty big way. We've had a number of OEMs in recent weeks have negatively pre-announced in some pretty bad fashion. And so in general, like outside of AI, I wouldn't say that things look fantastic, but AI demand, like I said, right now it's much more. It's being gated by supply rather than demand. They're selling everything that they can make right now in AI. And fortunately for NVIDIA, that's where they are. That's where they play.
Up 2,000% in the past 2 years. One of the great stories. You've got a $155 price target. I think it has a little bit left to go. Stacy, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
We have reason to believe that the Justice Department is investigating NVIDIA for its dominance in the AI chip market. What can I say about this one? NVIDIA invented the AI chip market. It would not exist without them. Should we blame them for making such an amazing product that it created an entire industry? Remember, NVIDIA owns this business because it spent tens of billions of dollars developing the best chips. They made a huge bet on artificial intelligence many, many years before anyone was taking it seriously. But it could have blown up in their faces. The risks were enormous. Should NVIDIA fund startups that can take away their market share? Hey, I got an idea. How about a special monitor pointed to the company to ensure that it doesn't get too much of a lead over the competition? No, forget that. I got a better idea. Maybe Justice Department should just demand that CEO Jensen Huang work from home for maybe 4 days only, like everybody else. And then maybe the other guys can catch up. Look, we know these big tech companies are powerful. They're supposed to be powerful. They have tons of customers and hundreds of billions of dollars in their coffers. They have scale and competitive moats and pretty much everything else they need to win, just like we were taught to do when we started a business. But believe me, these companies are the envy of the world. Some of them seem to be the only entities that the People's Republic of China is actually afraid of. So many countries spend so much money trying to prop up companies they consider national champions. But in America, what do? We kneecap them. Believe me, if the courts agree with the justice and the FTC, let me tell you something. Here's what's going to happen. Your prices ain't coming down. They're going up. We hurt these companies too much and we don't have to worry. The PRC will come in with something subsidized by their government that will happily step in the void. Oh, one more thing. Have you noticed the wealth created by these companies? Do you think that's all being hoarded by the execs? No. You could own the stocks right alongside them. In fact, as I tell CNBC Investing Club members daily, you should. Bottom line, I find this endless string of government investigations wrong-headed, pointless, and frankly, even anti-American. Sadly, it's the American government so upset at the power of these companies that's insisting the tech titans should simply be less good. To which I say, good for who? Good for what? Certainly not us.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. The S&P finished the day up about 0.7%. NVIDIA finished the day down by nearly 0.2%. And Tesla finished the day down about 1.4%. At this point, I have exited most of my swing trade position, and I will likely exit the rest of this swing trade position prior to the robotaxi event tomorrow just in case. The reason for this is that I think this event could turn out to be a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. And so, because of that, I intend to be out of this swing trade position entirely before the event tomorrow. I just want to be completely honest and transparent with all of you about that. Tesla is very close to this lower trend line. If Tesla were to touch the trend line tomorrow, that would be around $239 per share. Now about NVIDIA. Today was the final day of NVIDIA's AI Summit in Washington, D.C. Looking ahead, the next AI Summit is scheduled for October 23rd through the 25th in Mumbai. And this time, Jensen Huang is scheduled to speak at the AI Summit on October 24th. So mark your calendars for that. A lot has happened already this week for NVIDIA. We heard a lot of exciting things from the AI Summit. NVIDIA updated their investor presentation this past Sunday. Foxconn announced a new NVIDIA superchip facility, and we have confirmation that Blackwell is shipping out to customers now. As was mentioned in one of the clips you just watched, OpenAI has received shipments of Blackwell. And Microsoft announced yesterday that Microsoft Azure is officially the first cloud in the world to be running on NVIDIA's Blackwell platform. Remember that Microsoft is NVIDIA's largest customer, and this is a very big deal. We were expecting Blackwell to start shipping in Q4, and here we are still in NVIDIA's fiscal third quarter, and we have confirmation that NVIDIA's customers are receiving and starting to use Blackwell. This means we should start to see Blackwell revenue show up in NVIDIA's next earnings report, not just guidance for Blackwell revenue, but actual revenue on the books. And this is a very big deal. In the short term, I don't know what will happen because anything is possible. And personally, I am cautious about adding to NVIDIA and cautious about adding to the rest of the market until November 1st. This is because of the pattern the market followed back in 2016 and 2020. Back then, the market began trading lower in mid to late October, reaching a relative low on the Friday before the election. This year, that would be November 1st. And keep in mind that back in 2020, the market actually traded higher during the first half of October before eventually trading lower in the second half of the month. And so even though the market is moving higher right now, I am still cautious until we get to November 1st. I don't know what will happen between now and then, and I personally would rather be patient just in case. Now, once we get to the actual week of the election, I think the market is likely to start trading higher as it did back in 2016 and 2020. And this is assuming that nothing unexpected is happening in the world at that time. And I think NVIDIA is especially likely to trade higher in November in anticipation of NVIDIA's next earnings report. This is because of Micron's great earnings that they reported and because of Blackwell, both Blackwell revenue and fourth quarter guidance for Blackwell revenue. As of NVIDIA's latest earnings conference call, we were expecting about $3 to $4 billion in Blackwell revenue in Q4. So if NVIDIA guides Q4 Blackwell revenue noticeably higher than $3 to $4 billion, then I think the stock likely trades higher on that news. So those are my short-term thoughts about NVIDIA. Looking ahead with a long-term perspective, I am bullish on the future of NVIDIA, and I would not be surprised if this company doubles over the next 2 years given NVIDIA's current growth trajectory and upcoming product cycles. And on that note, I'll share these 2 slides again from NVIDIA's updated investor presentation. This first slide shows some of the components of Blackwell. And the reason I share this is to remind you that Blackwell is not just a chip. It is an entire platform. It's a supercomputer, and this provides a massive revenue opportunity for NVIDIA. And this next slide is very encouraging because this is a product roadmap from NVIDIA. This year, we get the launch of Blackwell. Then in 2025, we get Ultra Blackwell. And Rubin is scheduled to arrive later on in 2026. So again, I think NVIDIA's brightest days are ahead. As long as things remain peaceful in the Pacific, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their capex spending on AI, then I think NVIDIA should be just fine for at least the next 1 to 2 years. At least that's how I view the situation. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.